Ambassador John Bolton, he is former U.S. ambassador to the UN and a Fox News contributor. You know, one interesting thing we have heard people say today is this kind of puts to rest that idea that President Trump is Vladimir Putin's puppet, because this was very much not an action that Putin would be excited about, no?
Yeah, no, I think this is very significant. I mean, we've yet to hear any real evidence that there was any collusion at all between the Trump team, however defined, and Russia in Russia's efforts to interfere in our election. And I think it's incumbent on those who are leaking this story, Democratic politicians who are following the line, and the media, to ask themselves whether this is really worth continuing. If they do, I think they're potentially making embarrassment for themselves.
Going back to what happened today or last night in Syria, now Rex Tillerson heads to Moscow next week. What do you think that meeting is like?
Well, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, this is really a time to lay it out for the Russians. I think there's one point that emerges very clearly is the 2013 agreement that Russia brokered, Sergei Lavrov in particular with John Kerry, the two foreign ministers, and the government of Syria, that ended Syria's chemical weapons program, right? Everything was declared, everything was turned over, everything was destroyed, except for the stuff that they kept and have used several times since then, including earlier this week. It really shows what it means to negotiate with the likes of Syria and Russia on arms control issues. I've done it many times. These are governments, like others in the world, like North Korea, like Iran, that make agreements on arms control and proliferation issues, and then from before the ink is dry, violate the agreement. So if there's any naivete left about dealing with Russia and what it does with its agreements, I hope this is a learning experience for the new administration. You
know, we listened to it at the beginning of the show, Susan Rice coming out on NPR once again and saying that, you know, bragging about the Obama administration not having to pursue any sort of military action, but being able to negotiate away chemical weapons out of Syria and confirm that they were really all gone with the help of Russia. I mean, what do you think of that now?
You know, in international relations, you don't get many laboratory experiments. It's pretty hard to have those scientific conditions set up. This is one of them. This is a demonstration that the Obama administration, not just Susan Rice, all of them, lived in fantasy land when it came to this agreement on Syrian chemical weapons. And they lived in the same fantasy land on the nuclear deal with Iran, the New START arms control with Russia. I mean, there's a long list of it. So these are dangers that still exist out there that we haven't seen the full implications of. But it's something for Rex Tillerson to talk to Sergei Lavrov about. Tell us about those Russian violations of the 1987 INF treaty that our military has been reporting. Talk about the violations of New START. And these are things that can lead to confidence building if you get some straight answers from the Russians, but I wouldn't hold my breath.
What do you think happens in Syria now? What are the next steps?
Well, I do think, as the administration's saying, it's really up to the Syrians and the Russians. I do not take this decision by President Trump last night to be a fundamental change in American policy. I think it was limited and targeted on this violation of the prohibition against using chemical weapons. I do think that was a threat to American national security. These weapons could fall into the hands of terrorists. And I think it's in America's interest to say anybody who uses a prohibited weapon of mass destruction, biological, chemical, or, God forbid, nuclear, is going to face consequences from the United States.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you as always for your time.
Glad to do it.